We have Mohammed Malegi is going to be speaking to us about Angular2 and how we can get our practices from Angular1 into Angular2 and how it's appropriate to us. Malegi has been at Ratify for 5 years now. He runs the NG Sydney News Group, which is quite appropriate considering the talk for today. I'm sure you'll find it very practical. Malegi has been doing this for a while. And I won't take any more of your time, so please join me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so, I had a slide about the topic. I had a slide about myself, where the most important thing I wanted to tell you about was Redify and GrooveStop.net and stuff, and try to get so many followers to my Twitter account. But now I've kind of screwed my plan. So I'll have to do something a little bit different. So as he said, I am a .NET developer, and I do a lot of Angular stuff, and I run the AngularJS user group that's called NG Sydney, which is always looking for speakers, because you guys have been using Angular, all of you, right? Who here has been using Angular 1? And who here has been using Angular 2? Good. So I'll pretend that I know stuff, which will be awesome. And actually, I was thinking about this presentation for many times and kind of rewrote the presentation about 5-6 times, because I didn't just want to give you some code that there are so many awesome conferences and videos on YouTube that show you what the syntax for Angular 2 is like. I was thinking a little bit bigger. Let's go and talk about how on the big picture is Angular 2 different, and should you care or should you just move to React, or our plan for today is simple. We will go from where we know Angular 1 is, and we'll have some few things about what's coming in the package with Angular 2, not particularly the syntax itself, but what is coming, TypeScript, RxJS, and all this stuff. And then we try to go big with the big picture, and then fall down to the reality and see what's going to hurt when doing this. So, how many did you say you did Angular 1 again? Sorry, my memory is fine. Good. So, those who did Angular 1, at least for me, the one thing we really liked was that we had a unit of separation that was the controllers. You write logic code in the controller and all your DOM gets affected. You don't need to mess with jQuery, and you also don't need to mess with observables if you have done Knockout before and have done this for 14 months. So that was all cool, that it worked well. You can put controllers inside controllers and structure your application and feel, you can even do things by feature, and everything is pretty cool. And when you needed more power, when you needed really to manipulate the DOM and you don't want to get your controllers messy, you could use the directives, and you can have your DOM manipulation into directives, your logic in controllers, everything is clean, everything is nice, good applications and stuff. Of course, you expected that there was a bug. I'm struggling to remember where I read this. It was on Twitter, but I don't exactly remember. The problem is, when we're writing Angular 1, if you really want to go with the performance, and trying to increase the performance as much as you can, you go and write directives. And most of the time what you write is trying to escape from the change detection for Angular 1. That's how you get performance. You try to do so much stuff outside of the digest loop and then call digest loop at the end, and that's how you get performance. That's how we rocked with Angular 1, most of the time at least. Now, scratch all of that. Let's go and talk a little bit about what's happening in Angular 2. Let's see if I remember these slides. Cool. So, when we think about Angular 2, we think about a whole package that has a lot of stuff. Some of them we have to be absolutely aware of, and some of them we are not. So we have mainly three things that kind of were there since the inception of Angular 2. There was Zones, and Zones was very, very old. I'm guessing in 2014, and most likely it was even created before that, and then didn't get much traction, and then got applied to Angular 2, and now it's becoming considered as part of like the JavaScript language itself. We'll talk about that, what that is. We have TypeScript and we have RxJS or reactive extensions. Who here does know what RxJS is? Not does know how to use it, but just knows, like, here's the word before at least. Okay, cool. So let's talk about each one of them and like how they're kind of shaping Angular 2. So Zone.js is the new way in Angular to do change detection in a way that is like responding to different events. So we were like, and instead of the digest loop, we can make everything in the browser become part of the digest. So when you get changes in your data, most likely it is coming from either your code or from the DOM. And most likely, even your code, it starts somewhere in an event, even if it's like page load. So we were like, okay, so you only change data when you are adding events, and you do the cleanup, of course, in removing events, or in asynchronous operations, like when you are making an Ajax call, using either the XML, HTTP request, or the fetch API. Or maybe when you are doing something async that's not even related to the server, like set timeout, set interval, window.get animation frame. Is that the correct one? All this stuff. Is this always where your code is going to be? Cool. Let's monkey batch this. Let's replace all these methods with our custom methods, with our custom wrappers. It sounds like a great idea, and monkey batching back in 2014 was quite a very dirty thing. But you know what? It's mixing HTML and JavaScript was also a dirty idea, and now it's suddenly a good thing. So Zone.js is a library that just takes away all the APIs, all the native APIs that can have changes in the browser, which happen to be just a few, surprisingly, and replaces them in a way that allows change detection to just work. Surprisingly, from all the examples that I've seen, this thing does work. Like, although Angular 2 gives you the ability to go custom and write your own, what they call zone, via a thing called ng-zone that's included in the Angular 2 library, all the complex examples that I found, they pretty much don't even need to do this. I've only found it like in complex Stack Overflow questions and stuff like this, as there are not even that many, and I keep an eye on the Stack Overflow thing so that I can increase my reputation, you know. I reached it, I'm between 2% and 30% top user on Stack Overflow just because I keep following it every day and, you know, finding the easy questions and getting many upvotes. So let's talk about TypeScript. TypeScript was one of the earliest ways for people to get new ECMAScript 6 features, maybe even before Babel was very popular. So you got your classes, and you got your imports and exports. That all works very nicely and very easy. But it also has things that, at least historically, are not part of the ECMAScript. So you get your decorators, which, who knows what the equivalent of decorators in .NET? Annotations in Java and in Babel. So exactly, it's attributes in .NET, except they're kind of a little bit stronger. You get enums and you get type check, which, you know, obviously where TypeScript gets its name from and like where it started in the first place. Writing with TypeScript is awesome. You just want to continue writing with TypeScript all the time. You get the C# experience if you're using something like Visual Studio Code or WebStore, and these are my favorite ones. Visual Studio 2015 surprisingly isn't as good as these two. But when you start dealing with external libraries and stuff, you kind of find that to get IntelliSense, you need to install it, download it manually, which is a thing they call typings. That's not 100% true because now a lot more libraries are starting to include typings as part of their NPM package, so it comes automatic. But you still deal with some libraries that don't have typings at all, some libraries that you need to find the source and install the typings manually, which gives you all the type check and type errors and IntelliSense and stuff, and some that just have them in the NPM. Even worse, some of them are up to date and some of them aren't. So with Angular2 in particular, the usage of TypeScript is awesome, and I'll show you a few examples of that in code. The other thing with TypeScript is that you kind of deal with a bit of configuration to get it to understand what module system you want to generate. What do you want to generate? ECMAScript 5 or ECMAScript 6? Are you going to use something like System.js, or are you going to use like something like Webpack, or do you just want globals? Do you want a require.js style thing? So all this stuff you need to tell it how to do it. And also you get a few options like, do you just want everything to be typed and get errors if you say I want a generic type, which they call any, or you want specific? There are a lot of stuff, but it's a bit interesting. Now RxJS. RxJS is a library that provides you a thing called Observable and another thing called Observer, or sometimes they call it Subject. Observable is a promise, and Observer is a deferred. So if you ever worked with Angular1 and you ever said $q.defer, that's the thing that creates a promise, right? And the promise in here is an observable, except the observable is slightly stronger than promises. My favorite thing is that you can resolve it multiple times, so it's like an array. It's like the best way to think of it is that it's like an event. So when you subscribe to an observable, it's very similar to when you write Zen for a promise, and I'll show you some code. But the only difference is that you can send so many messages, just like you can trigger so many events. It also has a few extra things, like it can be lazy. It can only start when you subscribe to it. Unlike, for example, when you have AJAX requests, once you say http.get, it just got sent. And it can be cancelable. Until today, you can't cancel a promise. So if you have an AJAX request and you want to cancel it and get another one, you most likely have to shuffle your variables to point to a new promise and stuff like that. So you don't get that problem with observables. I just deleted the things that it can be cancelable last night because there is a proposal for ECMAScript to have cancelable promises. Except the syntax looks horrible. I'll let you go and look at it. It's no good. You can create an observable in RxJS in so many ways. You can create it from a particular fixed value, which is observable off there. And they also have so many helpers. You can say, okay, I want observable that comes from an interval. So, every 500 milliseconds or something, give me a new number. I want just a range of numbers that, all come at once. I want to provide my custom logic, and I keep resolving. Even more, if you have an event, if you have a promise, you can just, create an observable from there and go on. AJAX request, whatever. Once you got the observable, it's as strong as a promise, an event listener, and an array. So the best way for .NET developers to think about observables is that it's link for events. So you have all the link stuff that you can think of. As we're seeing here, we have take, skip, first stuff, filter, which is like where, reduce, which is kind of like select many, and map like select, and do, which is like for each, kind of helpful for debugging. Oh, I got half of my time for this. I have to run very quickly. Okay, cool. So you can also replace the stream that's coming or the array of events that's coming with another array with any of these, what they call them, operators. And let me show you this code once my machine. Okay. I think we'll have to cancel this session, Raf? Sorry? Oh, okay, cool. You know what? I'll have to cancel this one because of one thing only, which is actually what happened really was a trick that turned on me badly. So I was trying to pretend that I'm having a problem.
Oh man.
And what happens, you know, when you call Wolf?
I'm not gonna believe it.
Allow me to do that, and then do this again, then hopefully it will work. If and when this happens in NG Sydney, I usually just call it one thing called technology, which doesn't get funny when it takes so long like this. It's probably PowerPoint just taking complete full control of my screen. Hopefully this time, we got something. All right, so a quick example of how you create a promise normally. When you do this, you have your promise, and usually, like if you're creating an ECMAScript 2015 promise, you just have a constructor, you get it, you resolve, and if you want to throw an error, and you just call them once, and that's it. So you can, inside this function, you can do your asynchronous code, and that's it. In observables, you can do something similar in a few ways. Can everybody see this? Anybody has a problem? Anybody does not have a problem? Okay, cool. As I said, you can easily, create an observable with just, observable of a value, and instead of a then, you just have a subscribe, and similar to promises, you can have multiple subscribers. The main difference is each of them gets called independently. So unlike promises, when every then have to return the value to the next then, here they're completely independent. If you want to pass value, you use operators, which I'll show you in a bit. But when you want to repeat values, things start to get a little bit messy. So here I'm just trying to get a new value with every 500 milliseconds. And to do this, I have you can think of this as my AngularJS service, which has a getPromise function. So again, nothing special happens in here. We just return a new promise, and every time we increase and turn a value so that we get a new number. So this part of code is normal, but the way we call it is not. Because in order to subscribe to the promise, you have to wrap it in another function. So what happens in this function is that it says, okay, I am subscribed to in here at the bottom, and then once I get called, I need to return a new subscription, a new then, because there will have to be a new promise, because I can't renew the same promise. I can't get new values from the same promise again, and that's kind of a hack that I did have to do in some mobile applications. But in something like observables, it's just very easy. If I want to return multiple values, we'll just set timeout. It's the same way, just instead of new promise, I have observable.create or new observable if I wanted to. And then it's just the same thing. I have complete. A few differences that are interesting is I can resolve multiple times. And because I can resolve multiple times, I can either continue indefinitely, or I can say it's complete. I'm complete. All the values I want to send you are done. And I can also, of course, throw an error. Once I finish this is a nice syntax called the fat arrow syntax that allows you to keep your this context not changed. So here I can return what's called a subscription. Once I call my subscription, it allows me to unsubscribe from this subscription, so I can cancel the observable, which is something until today doesn't exist with promises, and even in the future we'll have some throw cancel weird syntax that I just don't want to deal with. And now you can easily have multiple subscriptions. So this one, I send true to say, I send true to say what? To say succeed, so that I control getting an error or getting a message. So now just like then, the first value is what happens if you have success, and then what happens if you have an error. But here we have a third value because you can get multiple successes, so you have a third value for complete. Complete also means completed successfully. So in the second example, I have this. But what if I want something, I want to simulate the try, catch, finally functionality. I want to know when you're done. Even if you throw an error, you can just call finally. So you can see it's kind of nice, but it gets more interesting when you start, instead of creating your own, you start, implementing the existing functionality in ArcGIS. So here I'm just doing the interval. And then here, this example is very small, but it's a little bit mind-gobbling. So we import the observable thing that's very similar to ECMAScript 6, 2015. We create a new value like a counter every 500 milliseconds. And then just like link, we say take 5. So this will stop after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with 500 milliseconds between each. Then we create another observable. We say from 101, go 10 numbers. The dollar sign at the end of the name is kind of a convention, by the way, for observables. Similar to how people used to do dollar sign before the name in jQuery. It's just ridiculous. And then we concatenate the two. So we say, okay, we want a new observable that starts with the new values, with 500 milliseconds in between, and then adds the big numbers, the 101 plus, to the end of it. So the new observable will have values from both of them. And then we create another observable that says, okay, all the values from the previous one, I just want the even ones. And then we have a subscription. Does it? Okay, cool. So now, who expects what will happen when I run this? Just double check the number, 06, okay. I will bring the code back to you for a minute, and you tell me, somebody raise your hand and tell me what's going to happen when I run this. Just wait for 3 time. Let's let the computer tell us. Demo gods. So the reason is you do npm run, not run. So now what's going to happen is every 5 milliseconds I got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Except we have a filter, remember, only even ones. And then after that, instantly I get 101, 102, all the way to 110, except we still have the filter. This sort of manipulation is very hard without observables, but it shows you how strong the library is. And that's very awesome if you want to deal with this. And this kind of tells you why Google are just using it for everything. So they're using it for 2 important things, which are change detection, events, and HTTP calls. Everything that can be a promise, pretty much. So how did I skip all of this? Yeah. I was in panic time when the screen was not working. Now, forget about the technical details. This is the part that I wanted to talk about in here. Why is Google changing all this stuff on us? It's a personal take. Obviously, I'm not affiliated with the team, but I think it started with, okay, the digest loop is horrible. We have Zone.js as created by the creator of Angular. Let's use it. The change detection is costing us. Let's make it better. Let's make it one way, so it goes only up one way, and you don't need to worry about all the other trees in your scope. Actually, why scope? We have classes. Let's use this. Cool. And then if we have classes, can't we just take controllers, modules, routes, and directives and merge them into one thing and call it a component? That's pretty much what they did, with a very single exception that actually don't RIB directives, because they still exist in Angular2. And you can still manipulate DOM with directives, except it's very, very less likely that you're going to do this versus Angular1. And actually, components are directives, similar to how directives used to have controllers before. And then, okay, if we're talking about components, let's embrace web components. Web components, in a way that's not 100% accurate, but like very easy to think about it, they're just custom HTML tags. So when you write a directive that is an element, like the selector is an element, then it is a custom HTML tag, so it is a web component. And why can't you use other web components that come from like web component specific frameworks like Polymer and stuff? And why wouldn't the Angular component integrate into them? To be honest, I don't think Google cares that much about web components. I don't think web components is a big thing in general, and I've been doing web components for like 8-9 months. I'm not allowed to talk about what happened there, but yeah. And also, when they went like this, they were like, okay, our template syntax is not very cool. Every time you want to add a new event to listen to, you have to add a new ng double click, ng tab, ng whatever. That's just ridiculous. And also, just because they have to do a lot of parsing in the template code, they don't like the code pairs. So they were like, okay, how about we get one form of syntax that translates directly to JavaScript, so that we can, just run it like as a normal JavaScript and be done with it. That was very cool for them. And once they started having their own render, for the template, they were like, okay, you know what? Who cares about HTML? We can even go after HTML and have any XML-like syntax as your template, and that's what the native script guys, Terek, they changed their name, I hear it, right? Progress are doing, and the native script 2 is looking awesome. You really should see the demo that's called Progressive Web Applications that they're having. It's just awesome. And then they were like, okay, now you get your components. How will you tell that the component is the route? How will you tell what's the selector for that component? Do you have to implement interface? What's the nice way to do this? And they found that decorators or annotations were nice. And it was actually Google's idea, not Microsoft's TypeScript idea, and that's why they were going to implement a new language just to do decorators, the script thing, and then TypeScript were like, we'll do it for you, don't worry. But that was only the start. And I think Angular2 has went a lot far from even what the Angular team planned in 2014. Because, for example, something like Universal is something that didn't start from the Angular team, as far as I know, but it's now becoming a cool thing. So now, the thing that Angular team always keep talking about is that Angular2 is a framework, not a library, like the other faint-hearted libraries. Angular1 is a framework, but Angular2 is even bigger. It's a platform, and it's not just like a sales speak. They actually mean it. Because When you get Angular 2, now Angular 2 is becoming very opinionated. It's not your Angular 1 structure application as you want. They have a style guide. If you want to use their CLI tool to generate stuff, and you will need to because TypeScript configuration and build configuration in general is horrible. Then you want to follow the style guide, which means you want to follow the naming convention, folder structure. It happens to be good. It's based on John Baba's very popular style guide for Angular 1. But it's kind of, they would never say that, but I personally see it as our way, or not the highway, but you'll really be struggling. So once you got the CLI, then they're saying, okay, we will get you a lot of stuff extra. Your templates, we will compile them offline for you. Sometimes they call simply compile offline compiler, and we will not include the compiler in the library. So in the browser, you get less template code, and you get less Angular 2 code. So like they were showing in the last ngconf demo, they were showing that the size for a Hello World application was like 49 kilobytes. Of course, unified and gzipped and stuff. But that was an impressive number, 49 kilobytes. And the way they got it was by taking off the template out of the thing. And although I put this the first one, I believe this is the biggest thing for the Angular 2 team. It's not really ready yet, but when Brad Green, the team lead for Angular 2, was asked when will Angular 2 be released, he said when one feature is fully implemented. This. And then, once you get that, once you really mess with the build pipeline and the templates and you compile them offline, why don't you just render the HTML then on the server? So now they got the Angular Universal, which again didn't start from the Angular 2 team, but now it's becoming a core component of the big picture of the platform. That they're saying, okay, let's generate HTML on the server, and let's write it to the client. Let's write a little bit of, I think they call it pre-boot JavaScript that allows users to still interact with the page, so you can click and do stuff even before your application has loaded, and it will only record your clicks, record your actions, record your events. And then once the application has loaded, it will play them. So imagine how this works on something like mobile, for example. You get very quick render, and you start interacting with the application, and it's not just doing nothing, or the anchor is going to the hash instead of actually clicking and stuff. No, it's recording all your actions, and then it just takes a little pause, if assuming that like you have a slow network or something, and it just works. So that's a big thing, and that's implemented in Node and ASP.NET. They're getting it to other server-side frameworks, but like the most complete implementation is for Node, and then Steve Sanderson from the ASP.NET team created this thing called Node Services for ASP.NET that just hooks into the Node thing and integrates the Angular Universal thing. Apart from that, they were like, okay, let's kick the performance even a little bit more. If you have web workers support in your browser, if you can have multiple threads in your browser, why don't we use them? So usually to use multiple threads in JavaScript or like workers in JavaScript, it's very hard. But for Angular, they're like, well, you know what? We will take care of how we go to the other thread and backwards. You'll not even feel it. We will run all the Angular code in the background for you, if the support exists, and your code as well, and it will just work. And again, that's one of those things that surprisingly do work. And then they were also approaching mobile, and I'm not talking about Ionic or NativeScript, because they are third party still, although they are working with these two particular teams very closely, especially the Ionic team. But they're saying, okay, now you have a web application. why wouldn't the web application be installable as an application? Like Chrome application, either on your desktop or your Android or your iOS. It happens to be that there is some standards for this. There is a thing called App Cache, and I think there's now a new replacement called Service Workers and stuff, and they're like, okay, we will get all the best practices of how to do this stuff, and we will give it to you if you do two things. If you follow our style guide and use our CLI tool. So, again, just very quick recap on this. I pretty much did it all in one slide because I was worried of the time. So you got the template compiler, that's one thing that's waiting. That's where you go for the universal and learn about it. But it's as simple as this, really. The implementation turns out it's not very, very complex. They just have a custom view engine for Express, and then you can associate it with your template files, and voila. It will, while it's rendering the HTML files, it will just take care of the executing the JavaScript and getting user-entered HTML. That's where you learn about all the mobile functionality. It's surprisingly still there. And that's where you can see the style guide. The style guide is a little bit worrying though, because it's a thing that they call a living document. It means it will evolve with time. And also the syntax for Angular 2 is going to evolve with time, but the promise, which I haven't seen working in anything public, but I know it has been happening a lot in Google, because they're having quite a few hundreds of applications already migrated to Angular 2. And in NG Sydney, by the way, every month I see at least a handful of people that tell me they're using Angular 2 at work in production. So the promise from the Angular team is that whenever they have a breaking change in the library or in the style guide or stuff, they will give you a tool that you can run on your existing code to convert it to the new syntax. Again, it's part of platform. We provide you everything. So to get this, like to enjoy all this stuff, you get to use the CLI, which is something like that. And I was going to run this example for you, except that last line actually threw an error on me. And that's because the CLI is not ready yet for this, but it can do everything above, which is it can create a new application, and it can the mobile support is already integrated, it's still optional, as you can see in there. You can generate all sorts of stuff. You can generate a route, you can generate a component, you can generate a pipe, which is a new thing that replaces filter and stuff. And you can, of course, have it run in a server called Glide Server, which has a special functionality that it kind of doesn't care if your real URL returns 404, it will just retain the default page. And that's very useful for Angular 2 applications if you want to use the routing without the hash. So they don't have to use the hash in your development server. And I tried it before, it can produce very nice production applications like a bundle, but when I tried it last night to get this working for you, it didn't. So it is in very active development. Like if everything in Angular 2 is at an RC now, this one's still beta-ish. I want to say alpha, like the API is stable, but the implementation keeps breaking. Because it keeps going to remove things which are not always on the same line. I need to run. Okay, let me show you some code, how this thing works. So there are two examples that I really love. The one thing that I love the most is the second one here, the Angular 2 Jumpstart. But Angular 2 Force was a very simplistic application that got created on the stage in ngConf. So I thought I'll be able to show you a few hints from that one first, and because it will be very simple and very fast. So not sure how to do the demos in this time, but we'll try. The first thing is all the Angular packages are now one thing that's called scoped packages. So it's like NPM has this new feature which is called scoped packages, like a namespace for all the packages. So Angular are trying to be very modular, that it's painful. Let me show you why it's painful. Because we're being realistic, right? Oh yeah, here it is, packages.json. So these are the Angular packages. And this doesn't include the zone and RxJS and reflecting into data, which is the thing that makes decorators still get written in TypeScript. Not to mention that, because this is all translated to ES6, so you need a shim for that, and System.js. That's one side why you need the CLI, actually. Let me just do the other thing, come on. System.config.system.js. System.js is the thing. There are two big players in the build world right now, System.js and Webpack. People say that Webpack has much better and smaller configuration. I don't subscribe to that, but I hear it a lot. Still figuring out what I might be missing. System.js though has a killer feature, which is it can run completely in the browser. That's why that's what we have in all the demos and stuff. But you see, now this configuration is a little bit kind of programming. That's not how you would write it necessarily, but they're doing it this way so that at some point they just change the version in one place and get everything just work. The version of Angular2, because they're also using this for making their Plunk samples. So let's go to the actual Angular stuff. So you have a main that's in the typing folder. The typing folder is what contains all the TypeScript utensils, which control this file. It's very similar to the packages.json. And this is the code that handles the TypeScript configuration. Most of the time you have this ECMAScript 6 and CommonJS, but module resolution has nodes so that you can include things from node modules and stuff. Okay, so we have my app. Okay, here's an app. Here is a main. If it clicks, yep, now it does. So now you see in here I'm loading from platform browser dynamic because that's the one that runs the template compilation in the browser, because you can make it as a compilation step, as we said. And then you get a bootstrap from there, and you just call it with your parent top level component. I press Control B to go to declaration, because TypeScript, just like C#. And ignoring the few imports that you have in there that can be a little bit painful, you just get a component. Think about it just like a directive with a controller. That's the best way to think about it. And actually, it is a directive. It's kind of a subclass of a directive. So it's just a class with a decoration or a decorator or an annotation. And you can write your template in line, or you can do, just like the directive template URL, and you have a selector. Most of the time, your selector will be element name, and if you want to be compatible with the way web components work, you need to have a dash in there, because that's kind of a standard. And then you tell it what directives you want to use, which is the most annoying feature in Angular 1 now. It's mostly for performance, so it only gives you what you need. And then you can include them. To show you what this application does, doesn't do that, doesn't do that, doesn't do that. 1, 2, 3. So it's just this guy. You can select the name and change it, just like a hello world, really. So if we want to go to this list, Control B as well, and then you see a little bit more complex stuff. Now you see the template URL is separate. You can have multiple styles, again, in line or in different files, similar to the templates. And you can like override the dependency injection, because dependency injection here is very nice, because now you have classes, you have TypeScript, it's just like C#. Why wouldn't you have dependency injection that's also like autofact, for example? So you realize, that sort of thing in the constructor as well. You just tell it that and it will figure itself out. If you want a particular thing, you can specify it in the provider as well. They also have gone a lot to give you the benefits that you usually only get with web components without using web components at all. So by default, in web components, every custom HTML will have its own CSS that will never leak to any other custom HTML tag. So they already simulate this for you with this, but that's called like Shadow DOM. They also allow you to either just use Shadow DOM, if you trust your browser support, or just make it global. Who cares? We're naughty. All right, and then I'll go to the hero component. This is the one that shows you the actual files. So in here, I won't show you the HTML for this one. Just say that's the selected one. And I go here. You might have seen this syntax before. So any component in there, you can give, there are three kinds of syntax in there. If you say, I'll start my syntax with an asterisk, this means transclusion. This element would be rewritten in a template tag and implemented again. So for the one you're looking at is the replacement of ngRepeat, for example. And then if you want to set a property, you can set a property like that with these square brackets. If you want to listen to an event, you do it with the circular ones. And that's a convention. Once you understand it, you understand everything. You can extend this, so when you are doing that, you can also say class dot some class name, or you can say style dot bag maybe height dot pixel. You can do crazy things like that, which is pretty awesome. But that's how it works. The interesting thing with this is that your models can be just normal TypeScript classes or interfaces. Interfaces that are very, very, very nice, because now your services, here my service is just reading from a JSON file, and all it's doing is it's just casting it to an interface. It's just a JSON object. I didn't need to create new hero and whatever. I know it will match this interface. So just cast it in here. And that's kind of like the syntax for casting it. And boom, Then when I call this service, it knows that it returns an observable of hero, and then in the subscription, it knows, that like this heroes is a collection of heroes, and all the autocomplete and error checking and stuff works. And of course, you can also have your own event emitters, which are like when the way you do custom events. And that's similar to scope.broadcast, for example, but only goes up only one level, which is something that's quite silly, and they said they only look at after RTM. But then in the parent component, you can go, and in here I'm saying, when you listen to this event, just call this one with the event. So the event is what you emit in here. I'll go very quickly and show you, for example, how routing works. It's very similar to something like attribute routing or stuff like that. It's telling me to finish now, so I'll do that. The whole idea was that this sort of thing is not meant to be a course for Angular2. If you want that sort of thing, I'm considering a cookbook to be written, and I'm considering doing one-on-one coaching with people if you need to contact me around this stuff. But I wanted to give you the picture, how the components come together. If you want to get one thing from this presentation, it's that it's the whole thing. It's universal, it's mobile, it's a CLI, it's a very opinionated thing. Either you love it or you hate it. If you love it, the source will go with it. If you want to play with Angular2 without all this setup, without even the CLI, sometimes stable, sometimes not, just go to the Angular.io website, click on the docs. It's a 5-minute quick start, and then this link that says the live example will open a blanker for you that has all the System.js integrated, and you just modify the app component and do your thing. That's my very, very special, very little as well trick for how to try things. It helps me get upvotes in Stack Overflow. So yeah, that was it for me. If you subscribe to the GuruStuff.net newsletter, and that's where I usually put all the videos I learned from, all the Twitter links, because I keep finding nice things. I watch them, I put them on Twitter, and then I want to reference them later, and I can't search for them on Twitter. So I decided to make this newsletter, on GuruStuff.net for people to read all the nice things that I find, and for me to be able to find the nice libraries and videos and articles that I find as well. A very important shout out for our speakers. And how long do I have for questions? 5 to? No time for questions. So come talk to me after that. I'm very sorry if I wasted your time or anything, and thank you all.